Hi everyone, it's Blood Gang, and I've finally reached 1,000 subs. Thank you so much for subbing my channel, folks. It really means a lot to me. As I very rarely speak in my videos, I thought this would be a perfect time for me to answer any and all questions that you folks might have pertaining to me or this channel. So to celebrate this special milestone, I'll be reading questions that folks have submitted in my community posts and answering them in return. Without further ado, let's go ahead and read the comments. First we got Shadow Meowster, who's got a bunch of questions, and he said, "Decided to ask a few questions. Hope you do not mind. Not all. We'll go with each one separately." So the first question is, what was the first Fire Emblem game you played? Assuming the one with Boss and Ike doesn't count as the first Fire Emblem game, yes, Brawl's first Smash game, sue me. It's Sacred Stones. While I have heard about Fire Emblem Smash, I didn't enter the series during the early Y2K era and actually played it much later, around a year before Awakening's release in the West. I remember watching a best friend of mine playing FEH on his phone via emulator. He introduced the series to me when I got curious, and also taught me how to emulate games, and I got hooked on it immediately. I really liked the story and characters in Sacred Stones, and the branching paths of promos were interesting too. While the game was pretty easy, I still enjoyed it, and I think it's one of the best entry points to Fire Emblem in my opinion. And yeah, I became a bigger FE fan than I've been ever since, and I played all the games aside from TMS and the first Warriors game. For the second question, they asked, which limited-time modes/events do you look most forward to in FE? I'd say Grand Conquest. Grand Conquest is one of my favorite modes of all time, because it's one mode where you can, well, build an army. Trust nobody. I just love the classic Fire Emblem gameplay of having large amount of units under my command. It's fun to trivialize matches with either my Fire Emblem Brigade or my multiple action squad. I don't know if it's me, but there's just something about facing challenging teams of other players in a very wide open map from a massive battlefield that makes it more enjoyable. It's a shame that we only get to play Grand Conquest every several months. GZ just feels like the most Fire Emblem mode of all time. Seriously is a good one too. I'm a sucker for roguelike games, and I like how it grants me a lot of room to experiment with the skills I was given, while also challenging me to make important decisions on the paths I could take. Well, personally I always go for the path that leads to advanced difficulty or the Vanner Seal, but that is obviously a no-brainer. I also appreciate how the early game isn't meant to be a breeze, even with the most broken modern units, as your kit might as weapon and special is locked. And it's pretty cool how you can jack up your faith with all the top tier skills you can obtain throughout your whole journey, to make it into practically unstoppable juggernauts of destruction. I also like Hero's Journey. While not particularly an action-heavy mode, it's pretty fun and cutesy with all the cutscene interactions. Heck, I've been using the events as intermissions for our ARO runs, though they've mostly been my summoner interacting with Marianne and their alts. Speaking of Marianne, their third question is, if Marianne were to get another alt in the future, what theme are you hoping for and why? Easy. Legendary Marianne. Just give her Blood King as a sword and make her into a cabinet with a crazier shout-outs effect. Joke answer aside, if you want a more realistic answer, I like Winter Marianne in FE for two reasons. One, because she specializes in ice magic, and two, so she can finally join her bestie Hilda for the Golden Deer holiday. I know Hilda's definitely waiting for her. And now for the final question. Are there any characters from the FE universe not yet in FE that you want to see added at some point? I honestly like to see Stefan in FE. He's a cool Easter egg character in Intelli's duology, and who knows, maybe he'll make a cameo in FE. Perhaps the Hero's Journey event where the units are digging for the treasure and finding him underneath the sand, just like you find him in the desert. Though given the COIL placement, he may have a fair chance of being this year's COIL GHB unit, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Another character I want in FE is Geats. He's one of my favorite characters in FE7 because he's a solo unit who's got a badass yet handsome design. And he's a pretty underrated character too. And I also like how his entire reason for joining the party was because he's bored. I'd also like Shannon from FE5 in FE. Not Shannon, but Shannon, because two words. Meme unit. And yes, fun fact, I'm a closet Thracia fan. But you know what I want the most in FE? Dorothy the horse. It's criminal how he hasn't even appeared alongside Marianne yet. Just either make Marianne to a cab unit, or maybe just have her summon Dorothy via Magic Circle. Come on, IS. Is it too much for me to ask to add Dorothy into the game? Next we got from Mufasa Enfused, and they asked, "Hey, congrats for 1K. Do you plan on putting other game content or stick to FE, which is fine? What are your thoughts about AR in FE? It can get hard depending on who you run into. Do you have workarounds that should handle any team? As far as I'm concerned with other game content, I honestly haven't thought of making one yet since Marianne FE is pretty much what I'm known for. Don't get me wrong though, I'm pretty open-minded about playing other games, FE really or not, and I'm more than happy to share my other interests. I may occasionally share my thoughts on other games I've experienced from time to time in community posts, but I wouldn't mind sharing gameplays too, whatever floats your boat really. But for now, I'm mainly going to stick to FE until I somehow feel like quitting one day, which obviously won't be anytime soon, or I guess until EOS, where folks won't be needing me anymore. And on the topic of Ether raids, I have very little trouble with AR in general, at least in terms of offense. I saw her game has plenty of broken tools to take maps apart, as well as increase the ladder count, and even when I no longer pull for new toys, I was able to remain involved for a very long time, and only dropped off thrice so far, and those were 3 times when I felt really sick. Though ever since the Ether change, I've been sandbagging battling more low tier maps. I suppose you could call it my quote-unquote workaround, and there's no shame in doing that if you can't stand the current meta yet still want to play AAR. But I do so mainly because I want more replays to improve our defense. Speaking of defense, I'd say it has a way bigger impact than the offense does. I would say of just having the offense mid-tick merges, more so if you want to reach rank 1. Defense wins most of the time with a kill 1 unit, but offense has 5 teams to choose from, not to mention it's player versus AI, so you gotta come up with a spice defense if you want a realistic shot at a higher rank. Like, I had to test a bunch of times by trial and error to figure out how not to get elmed on by anime defense, but once I figured that out and reached rank 1, I feel a sense of accomplishment doing so. Now, Chaos is a bit more complicated. On one hand, I like the free-for-all nature of the season offense, by virtue of allowing me to experiment team comps that I normally can't run in normal AR. But on the other hand, the problem with defense gets wrapped up by 11. You have to pray to your RNG that your copium defense doesn't lose a smart player with Loki, or even worse a sack player. What else can I say? It's Chaos season. Overall, AR isn't perfect, and you could probably say I got used to it, but I still enjoy playing it every week despite its flaws. And saving the best for last, we got Frieza Laxod, and they ask, what was the reason you got so invested in Marianne? Also, thoughts on Hilda and her relationship with Marianne? I'm particularly fond of her Three Hopes relationship. Well, I remember that prior to Three Houses' release, I was checking the pre-release info on Etrian's Forest, and when I looked over the characters, I spotted Marianne's profile, and saw that she's a shy animal like me, and her hair is blue, which is also my favorite color. Even before finding out about her backstory, I immediately grew attached to Marianne when I found something in common with her, and more so when I joined a Golden Deer route on my first playthrough and learned more about her and her support. But I was instantly blown away by her transformation during the post-time skip, and after seeing her grow as a person and finding her own happiness thanks to her friends, she went from one of my favorite Fire Emblem characters to my top favorite Fire Emblem character of all time. As someone who suffered from depression and self-loathing from not having the best school life and home life in my high school years, I relate to Marianne a lot, and seeing her find her own battles and moving forward was just super inspiring and made me love her even more. That's why I got so invested in Marianne, and that along her winning CYL led to the existence of my channel and teaching myself how to make videos to show that I want to be the best Marianne player in FEH. As for my thoughts on Hilda, I really like her design-wise. I like how her pink and black off-shoulder mini dress and her headband with heart just works well with her post-time suit design. It just fits Hilda's girly personality the most. Her Three Hopes design is kind of similar to her war design, but more colorful and cutesy, and the red cape was a nice bonus. The hairband was a bit of a surprise, but I don't mind it too much. And her pre-time skip design is simple yet nice, and I love the twin tails, which is definitely one of her most iconic charm points, if you catch my drift. If I had to pick a favorite design, I love her war design the most. Character-wise, I like her even more. When I first saw her pre-release info, I thought I'd like her the least, but I'm glad she subverted my expectations. I really appreciate how there was more depth to her than just her being a slagger who manipulates others to do what she wants, mainly because of her fear of failure and living up to others' expectations. I mean, look at Holstier. Her older bro is Crestless are crying out loud, and yet he could go toe-to-toe with other Crest users. It's no wonder Hilda felt inadequate when she gets compared to him. I don't have any siblings myself, but I have lived my parents' and friends' shadows before, and I can totally get why she wants to lower her expectations of others. But despite her laziness, I like how deep down she's actually quite selfless, being protective and supportive of those she's close to. Speaking of that, in terms of Hilda's relationship with Marianne, I really like her dynamic, and her interaction felt pretty realistic and relatable. Hilda not only felt like a bestie, but also a role model for Marianne, who brings up Marianne's confidence through strong friendship. I like how in her support chain, Hilda is normally lazy and actively tries to avoid work, yet didn't mind helping out Marianne with her tasks, because she couldn't just leave her bestie alone. And I remember in her aid support where Marianne left, when Hilda suggested that she herself should try to act more like Marianne. That was really cute, and it gave me a genuine chuckle. And Three Hopes just improved the relationship dynamic even further. One of my favorite parallel chapters was with Marianne and Hilda, and seeing Marianne powering through her insecurity to save her bestie just felt so wholesome. I also love how Hilda is a true bestie for Marianne in her Three Hopes support. She was someone who was willing to help out just for Marianne, and even took the blame for her mess. And Marianne became happy and was willing to support Hilda in return. It's that kind of relationship that makes it more down-to-earth and believable. So yeah, I'm fond of the relationship in Three Hopes too. I'm glad that the game made it even better. And that concludes the first ever Q&A. Not as many questions I was hoping for, but it's all good. I made do with what I had, and I also had fun giving my full thoughts for my answers. Let me know down in the comments what you think. I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts and answer your questions. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all take it easy out there.